Somewhere around 1933, your great-grandmother woke up before sunrise, not because she had a morning routine she'd read about in a productivity newsletter, because there was work to do before the sun came up, and the work did not wait. She fed the chickens, started the wood stove, made breakfast from what was in the pantry, which was full, by the way, not because she was wealthy, because she had spent the previous August preserving everything the garden produced, so that February would not be a crisis. 18 mason jars of tomatoes, 12 of green beans, 8 of peaches from the tree in the backyard that nobody planted intentionally, but nobody was going to waste either. Her household income for the entire year of 1933 was approximately $2,000. That is not $2,000 a month. That is $2,000 for the year. In today's dollars, adjusted for inflation, that is roughly $27,000 annually, which sounds like very little until you understand that the median household income in America right now in 2026 is $63,000, more than twice that in real purchasing power, and 51% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck on it. Your great-grandmother had 18 months of food in her pantry on $200 a year. You have approximately 18 days of expenses in your savings account, if that. The rooster needs you to explain that math, because the rooster has been staring at it for a while and it does not add up. This video is about why it doesn't add up, not in a way that blames you, in a way that shows you exactly what changed between her kitchen and yours and what specifically you can take from 1933 and apply to 2026 before the gap between what you earn and what you keep gets any wider. The math doesn't care about your feelings, and today it has questions. Let's start with what she actually knew that you were never taught. Your great-grandmother did not have a financial advisor. She did not have a budgeting app. She did not have a podcast about money mindset or a course on wealth building or a YouTube channel explaining compound interest with animated graphics. What she had was a relationship with money that the modern consumer economy has spent 100 years and trillions of dollars in advertising systematically dismantling. She knew that money was finite and physical, not a number on a screen that updates in real time. Physical, something you held in your hand and counted before it left. Something that when it was gone, not available on a credit card, not accessible via overdraft protection, not one tap away on a phone app at 11 p.m. when your judgment was at its lowest. She knew that the purpose of money was security before it was comfort. The mason jars came before the new dress. The emergency fund, which lived in a coffee can on top of the refrigerator, not in a high-yield savings account, but in a coffee can, got its contribution before the entertainment budget got anything. She knew that enough was a destination, not a moving target. Her enough was defined by necessity and held there even when circumstances improved. When the economy recovered in the late 1940s and her household income doubled, she did not double her lifestyle. She had already decided what enough looked like. She kept the same house, kept the same routines, and watched the coffee can quietly become a bank account that her children would one day inherit. The system isn't broken. It just replaced her relationship with money with yours, and yours was designed by people who make money when you spend, not when you save. Here is what changed between 1933 and 2026. And this is the part the financial industry does not want you to understand, because understanding it removes the guilt that keeps you buying solutions to a problem they created. Your great-grandmother's economy was built around production. She made things, preserved things, repaired things, grew things. The household was a unit of production, as much as it was a unit of consumption. Every skill she had, cooking, preserving, sewing, gardening, basic repair, represented something the household did not have to pay someone else to do. Your economy is built entirely around consumption. You are not a producer in your daily life. You are a consumer. You buy food instead of growing it. You pay for services instead of performing them. You replace instead of repair. You subscribe instead of own. The entire infrastructure of modern American life has been engineered to convert every activity that your great-grandmother did for free into a transaction that someone charges you for. The average American household in 2026 spends $3,948 a year on subscriptions alone. Your great-grandmother's entire annual income was $200. You're spending more on subscriptions than she earned in a year, and you are doing it automatically while you sleep. The average American household throws away approximately 30% of the food it purchases. Your great-grandmother threw away almost nothing because nothing was available to replace what you wasted. The mason jars existed because waste was not an option the budget could absorb. The average American replaces their smartphone every 2.3 years while the previous phone still functions. Your great-grandmother used her cast iron pan for 40 years and left it to her daughter, who used it for 40 more. The pan is probably still somewhere. The phone from 2021 is in a drawer or a landfill. None of this happened because you are less disciplined than she was. It happened because an entire economy was built around converting her habits into your transactions. Every behavior she performed for free became a product someone could sell you. Every skill she had became a service someone could charge you for. Every moment of friction she experienced when spending money, the physical act of counting bills, the visual reality of an emptying envelope, the weight of a lightening coffee can, was engineered out of the transaction so that spending would feel like nothing. They didn't steal your eggs. They convinced you to donate them voluntarily, monthly, automatically, with a rewards program attached. Now the rooster is going to give you the habits, not 25 of them. 10. The 10 that actually move the number, because a list of 25 things feels like a reading assignment, and the rooster is not a teacher. The rooster is a rooster in a suit who ran the math and wants you to do something with it before the 1st of next month. Habit 1. Pay yourself first and make it automatic. Your great-grandmother's coffee can got its contribution before the milkman got paid. Not after, before. The savings came first and everything else got organized around what remained. The 2026 version is an automatic transfer set up for the day after payday, not a manual transfer you do when you remember and feel like you have enough. Automatic, before your brain registers the money as available to spend. The American savings rate right now is 3.6% of disposable income. That is functionally nothing. If you are saving 3%, push it to 7. If you are at 7, push it to 12. Then live on what remains. Life adjusts to the new number within 2 paychecks every single time. Your great-grandmother knew this because she had no choice but to know it. You have a choice. Make it before the expense cycle for you. Habit 2. Define enough before you earn past it. This is the habit that underlies every other habit on this list. Your great-grandmother had a clear definition of enough. The house was enough. The food was enough. The clothes were enough. When the economy recovered and income increased, she did not move the line. She kept the same definition and let the surplus accumulate. You have never defined enough out loud. The line keeps moving on its own. Income goes up. Expenses follow. The feeling of having enough never quite arrives. A person earning $300,000 feels the same financial anxiety as a person earning $80,000 because their expectations expanded at exactly the same rate as their income. Write it down this week. What home is genuinely sufficient for the life you actually live? What car gets you where you need to go? What level of dining out adds something real to your week versus what is just habit? Write the numbers, then refuse to move them upward just because you can afford to. Every dollar earned past your enough line is a dollar that builds something instead of maintaining a lifestyle that grew by accident. Your feathers are fine. Your definition of enough is what needs attention. Habit 3. Treat your pantry like a financial asset. Your great-grandmother's pantry was not a convenience. It was a hedge against bad months, against price increases, against the kind of unexpected expense that sends a modern household to the credit card, because there is no buffer anywhere in the budget. The 2026 version is bulk buying at Costco or Sam's Club with a chest freezer and 90 minutes on a Saturday. Grains, frozen proteins, canned goods bought when prices are low, stored in quantities that make you immune to the week-to-week price fluctuations that are currently making groceries 36% more expensive than they were 5 years ago. The household that has 3 months of staples is not vulnerable to a bad month the way the household that shops weekly is. Your great-grandmother was not vulnerable. She built that immunity deliberately. You can too. Habit 4. Cook the same 8 meals on rotation and stop apologizing for it. The average American household spends thousands of dollars annually on delivery apps, takeout, and restaurant meals. DoorDash and Uber Eats add 40 to 60% to the cost of the same food available at the restaurant directly. Your great-grandmother made the same 8 dishes for decades, and her family was perfectly healthy and significantly wealthier than the household spending $50 a day on prepared food. Master 5 cheap, fast meals you can produce on autopilot. Eggs, beans, rice, pasta, whatever protein is cheapest this week. Not forever. Not as deprivation. As the default that keeps $800 to $400 a month in your account instead of in someone else's revenue report. The fanciness was never the point. The kitchen was the point. Habit 5. Run every purchase through a 4-question filter. Use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. That was the actual phrase stitched onto kitchen towels in Depression-era households. A 4-part decision tree that covered 90% of all spending decisions before money ever left the house. Your version, before any non-essential purchase over $30, ask those 4 questions in order. Can you use what you already have? Can you wear out what you currently own? Can the thing you have do the job, even imperfectly? If none of the above, do you actually need it, or is this boredom, habit, or a targeted ad that found you at the precise emotional moment you were most likely to buy? Run this filter for 1 month. The dollar amount that stays in your account will surprise you. Habit 6. Repair before you replace, every time. The average American household replaces between 8 and 12 perfectly functional items every year. Phones with cracked screens, vacuums with clogged motors, clothes with missing buttons. Each replacement is a transaction that someone else designed the system to make easier than the repair. YouTube has a tutorial for fixing literally every consumer product made in the last 70 years. The barrier to repair in 2026 is not access to information. It is the assumption that replacement is the default and repair is the weird option. Run the repair check first for 1 month. 70% of the time, the fix takes under an hour, costs under $20, and saves you between $50 and $600 on a replacement. Your great-grandfather had a repair drawer. The rooster has a repair drawer. You should have a repair drawer. Habit 7. Buy used first and let someone else absorb the depreciation. A new car loses 20% of its value the moment it leaves the lot. A new couch does the same. A new phone does the same. Your great-grandparents let someone else absorb that depreciation hit and bought the same functional object at a fraction of the original price. Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, estate sales, thrift stores. The infrastructure of buying used has never been more accessible. The same couch that cost $1,800 at the showroom is available for $300 from someone who bought it 2 years ago and is moving across the country. The $1,500 gap is your great-grandmother nodding across the decades. Habit 8. Build practical skills the household used to pay for. Basic plumbing, simple electrical, patching a wall, hemming a pair of pants, changing a tire. Each one of these is a skill your great-grandparents considered standard adulting. Each one is currently a service call that costs $80 to $400 depending on your city. Pick 3 skills you do not currently have. Find 1 YouTube tutorial on each. Practice once on something low stakes. Then handle the next instance yourself and save the service call. Roll those savings directly into savings or investment. Repeat across categories for a decade. The household gets more self-sufficient and roughly $20,000 to $30,000 wealthier in the process. Habit 9. Use the library before you buy anything. Your great-grandmother borrowed before she bought. Tools from neighbors, books from the library, clothes for special occasions from a cousin. Ownership was reserved for things used every single week. Everything else was borrowed or rented. The modern library in any U.S. city gives you free books, audiobooks, ebooks, magazines, and sometimes streaming services. The annual value of an active library card is between $500 and $1,500. The annual cost is zero. Tool libraries exist in dozens of major cities. Buy nothing groups redistribute thousands of dollars of goods weekly. The infrastructure of borrowing has not disappeared. It just does not have a marketing budget. Before any purchase over $20, run the borrow check first. Library. Buy nothing group, neighbor. Roughly 60% of what you are about to buy does not actually need to be purchased. Habit 10. Build community as financial infrastructure. Your great-grandparents survived the Depression in large part because their neighbors did too. The community was a financial asset. A neighbor drove your grandfather to job interviews. Your grandmother watched their kids. Someone's brother fixed the roof in exchange for canning help. Every favor exchanged was a service nobody had to pay cash for. The modern household pays strangers in cash for everything a previous generation got from neighbors as part of a continuous exchange of small favors. Build the community back. Buy nothing groups. Neighborhood chats. Regular friendships maintained on purpose. The household that has 15 people who will show up in a crisis is in any meaningful definition wealthier than the household with twice the income and no one to call. Here is where the rooster lands. Your great-grandmother survived 1933 on $1,200 a year. She had 18 months of food preserved in mason jars. She paid herself first in a coffee can. She defined enough and refused to move the line when circumstances improved. She repaired instead of replaced. She borrowed before she bought. She built community as financial infrastructure rather than outsourcing every human need to a transaction. You earn 40 times what she earned in real purchasing power. The U.S. personal savings rate is 3.6%. 51% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, including people earning over $150,000. You have 18 days of expenses saved, if that. The difference is not discipline. The difference is that an entire economy was built between her kitchen and yours specifically to convert her habits into your transactions. Every free behavior she had became a product. Every skill she possessed became a service. Every moment of friction that made spending feel real was engineered away so that money would leave your account before your brain registered it as leaving. Understanding that is not a reason for despair. It is a reason for deliberate resistance. The 10 habits in this video are not deprivation. They are not a return to poverty. They are the specific mechanisms by which your great-grandmother, on $2,200 a year, in the worst economic crisis in American history, built the foundation that became the middle class her children inherited. You have every advantage she did not have. The information, the tools, the income, the access. You just needed someone to remind you what she knew. The rooster crowed. Whether you wake up is up to you. Your eggs are yours. Act like it. Rooster economy. Because someone has to say it.